My name is Jerome Price. I'm 27 years old, and I need to tell you what my uncle did to me. That's what I said right after he flicked a burnt rib at my paper plate and said, "Scraps fit you. You're black." And the whole line at New Hope Baptist Block Cookout laughed like it was a skit. The smoke from the grill curled up into the church parking lot, and the kids were chasing each other between folding chairs. And I stood there holding that hot plate like it weighed a ton. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. By the end of this story, you'll understand why I had to stand up in that church lot, in front of God and everybody, and open the receipts while the mayor watched. And you'll see how quick laughs die when truth hits the mic. He didn't see the second grill behind my car yet. He didn't see Manny crouched by the speaker board, or Ms. Lula in her folding hat with a manila envelope in her purse. He definitely didn't see the service award tucked under the seat, or the HDMI cable we'd tested twice. He didn't see the way my hands had stopped shaking. Truth is, like water, it always finds the cracks. A lie needs constant maintenance, like a bad engine. Family is supposed to know better. Family is supposed to protect you. Family is supposed to be a shelter, not a storm. But that wasn't even the worst part. Back when my daddy died, I was 18. He worked construction, local 614 Ibu. Big gentle man with hands like anvils, skin like polished walnut, voice that rumbled when he laughed. My mama is white, freckles and sharp blue eyes, worked reception at the clinic by the West End MARTA. They loved hard until life wore them down, and then daddy's heart gave out on a summer afternoon in Atlanta heat that felt like breath you could chew. I still hear the siren sometimes when I'm trying to sleep. Grandma Maybelle, Mama's mama, held my face in both palms after the funeral and whispered, "We'll make sure you get your schooling, baby. Your daddy wanted HVAC because it's honest work and it don't break your back like those roof lines." She pressed a paper envelope into my hand that day, and I thought that envelope was a promise. I started working night shifts as a janitor at Grady Memorial Hospital. The floors there are like mirrors at 3 in the morning, when you push the buffer in slow circles and your mind gets quiet. On weekends, I picked up forklifts at the warehouse off Browns Mill Road, South Atlanta Freight, until my back started talking to me loud enough to drown out the radio. One winter, the space heater in my studio buzzed itself into silence, and I stood there, holding an orange bottle of ibuprofen in one hand and my wallet in the other, doing math. Heat or medicine, food or bus fare. I counted out quarters and dimes at the Dollar Tree register while Aunt Susan drove past in her new Mercedes, the pearl white one with the panoramic roof, and I watched her. Brake at the light, her Louis Vuitton Neverfull sitting on the passenger seat like a second person. She didn't look my way. The clerk handed me 2 singles and a handful of change, and my breath fogged inside my mask. I may be young, but I'm not stupid. They said I was confused, but I remembered everything. Uncle Rick started going around town telling folks my family sent me money every month, $5,000. "We send Rome $5,000 every month to keep him afloat," he'd say from pulpits and podiums, at New Hope and at the Rotary Breakfast, at the West End Community Center fundraiser, kind of voice that makes you believe because it sounds like a bank commercial. Boy just don't want to be helped. People clapped. Deacon Reggie patted his shoulder and said a prayer. Sister Wilma squeezed my arm in the fellowship hall and said, "Don't squander blessings now." I went home to my studio and opened my fridge to find a half bottle of ketchup, a bruised apple, and a carton of eggs with 2 left. I sat on my mattress and tried not to cry because tears don't fry eggs. The truth always comes to light. But sometimes it takes the long way. If only I'd known what he was really doing. The first sign came by accident, like truth often does. I was helping Ms. Lula Mae Jenkins clean out Grandma's shed, the one behind her little white house with the peeling blue shutters, because Grandma had moved into assisted living, and then not long after, into a quiet place, with more sky than sound. Ms. Lula is the kind of neighbor who sees everything without making a show of it. She handed me a rusted toolbox and said, "That box there got papers." I popped it open expecting screws and found a file folder instead. Inside, photocopies of checks, one in particular that made my hands go numb, $4,000, for Rome's HVAC program, written in Grandma's neat slanted hand on the memo line. The back was stamped cash, and someone had scribbled a signature I didn't recognize. My name was in the memo, like a ghost at a party I wasn't invited to. I took that copy to Pawpaw Henry, Grandma's second husband, who sits with the Braves game low on the TV and a quilt over his knees. "Pawpaw," I said, "what's this?" He squinted at the paper until his eyes watered and pulled off his glasses. "We sent that to your uncle to pass along, boy," he said. "That right, Rick?" And like he'd been summoned, Uncle Rick popped through the door with a little laugh. "Daddy, you're getting confused again," he said, voice sweet as iced tea. "We've been taking care of everything." He put his hand on my shoulder and squeezed. "Don't you worry, Rome. We got you." He looked me dead in the eye. No blink, no shame. And when I stepped out onto the porch, Mrs. Patterson from down the block called out, "I heard you living nice with all that help, baby," because the lie had already walked faster than me. I knew then. Not everything, but enough to start writing dates. When you mop floors for a living, your mind gets good at noticing patterns. Scuff marks tell stories. Who turned where? Who didn't lift their feet? So I made a pattern out of their lies. I found old bank statements in a trash bag by the shed, edges curled, water stained, but clear enough to see transfers out of the Price Family Foundation to an account ending in 1298. The same digits on Uncle Rick's HOA statement lying open on Aunt Susan's kitchen counter. One Sunday, I was told to fetch napkins. I snapped a picture with my old Android, the one with the cracked screen that still holds a charge, longer than the new ones. I had an old Samsung Galaxy S7 that I turned into a recorder. It sat in my pocket while Uncle said in the backyard, voice low and mean, "Ain't no black boy owning Maybell's house." The neighbors laughed at something else. Birds chirped. His words stayed. I opened the family group chat one night, mine by accident and on purpose, because Cousin Bethany had asked for my help with her Wi-Fi, and scrolled till I felt sick. "Say we send him 5K, Aunt Susan wrote. "No black air," Rick wrote, like he was ordering lunch. "Keep him hungry so he don't get ideas," another cousin typed. I screenshot each one. My hands shook so bad I had to sit on them for a second. If this happened to you, what would you do? Tell me in the comments. People think poor means stupid. Poor just means busy. Busy cleaning 2 jobs mess while other people make bigger ones. I brought what I had to a living room summit at Aunt Susan's, where the carpet smelled like new and the air smelled like lemon polish. I laid out the photocopies. I hit play on a voice note. I slid the phone across the table and showed the group chat. "I just want what's fair," I said. "Why would you do this to your own nephew?" My voice didn't crack, but my chest did. Uncle Rick crossed his legs, smiling like he'd been told a joke he already knew the punchline to. "Ungrateful," he said softly. "You should be grateful for what you have. We fed you, we clothed you, and this is how you repay us? You going to embarrass us in front of the church?" Aunt Susan leaned in, mascara blinking fast. "Don't play the race card," she hissed. "Nobody's thinking about that but you." A cousin snickered. "Rome always making trouble." Uncle Rick leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "No one will believe you over me." He said it like he was stating the weather, and everybody nodded like they'd heard a forecast they agreed with. They said I was confused, but I remembered everything. That night, I went home to my studio, peeling paint, 2 locks on the door because one wasn't enough, and I pulled off my boots, the soles duct taped where the rubber had split. I opened my refrigerator and took stock, half a loaf of bread, 2 slices of bologna, mustard. In the cabinet, instant. Noodles, the heater rattled. I looked at my medicine bottles, ibuprofen for the back, cheap generic allergy pills because the mold in the bathroom climbed the wall like ivy. I held my Breeze card up to the light to see how much value I had left. The MARTA bus schedule said the Route 71 wouldn't come for another 40 minutes in the cold. I pulled out an old photo of me and Grandma in her kitchen before she got sick, me holding a big bowl of collards while she wore an apron with a rooster on it. Her handwriting on the back, "Collards need time and patience, like people." I set it on the windowsill and promised her, out loud, I wasn't giving up. The next morning, while I was mopping a hallway at Grady, a voice said, "Mr. Price?" I turned my headphones down. It was a woman in a navy suit with a legal aid badge, clipped near her collarbone. "Camille Thompson," she said. "A friend sent me a message about what's going on. I might be able to help you." She sat with me during my break, coffee in one hand, notepad in the other. "Probate can be reopened if there's fraud," she said. "We'll need a chain of evidence, originals if possible, but good copies will do for now. We'll authenticate the signatures. If you consent, we'll file with Fulton County, and we'll do it through Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation and the Atlanta Legal Aid Society, so you don't pay a dime." She looked me dead in the eye like she was used to being underestimated and hungry. "You don't deserve this treatment. I'll testify if you need me. I'll walk you through it for as long as it takes." When I left the hospital that morning, Manny was leaning on my car. Manny Rivera, my warehouse buddy, DJ on weekends, the one who knows every chord and every security guard in the city. "Rome," he said, "I've seen what they do to you. I got gear, I got cameras, and I got time. When you're ready, we gonna make sure people hear you, not them." He fist bumped me like it meant more than a greeting. I blinked back what I was feeling, because some things don't need to be said for you to hear them. Then Ms. Lula introduced me to her binder. She set it down on her tiny kitchen table like a Bible. In it, dates. "I seen you sleep in your truck that cold snap in January," she said, tapping a line with a small, steady finger. "I brought you food on the 27th when the lights went out." Polaroids of me on the ladder fixing Grandma's fence before her last birthday. Receipts for lunches she paid for when she happened to make too much. That binder felt like someone had seen me when I thought I was invisible. Cousin Bethany texted me late one night, "Can we talk?" We met at the Andrew and Walter Young YMCA, sat on a bench while kids in swim caps laughed in the pool. "They told me the scholarship money dried up," she whispered. "But look." She showed me her phone. The Price Family Foundation had an expense line. Boat slip, $4,800. Another. Golf, club dues, $3,200. I swallowed hard. I hugged her. "It wasn't you," I said. "It was them." She cried like someone had untied a knot she'd been breathing around. The paper I found next changed everything. Manny knew a girl who used to do admin for the foundation. She owed him a favor. He had fixed her sound at a quinceañera when the speakers blew. She logged into an old cloud backup, and there it was. A PDF named Codicil Final Approved, created 2 weeks after Grandma died. The metadata showed it had been authored on Uncle Rick's laptop. My thumb hovered over the phone screen like it might catch fire. The first sentence hit me like a punch. "To avoid confusion and protect family values, no black descendant shall inherit from Maybelle's estate." I stared until the letters blurred. My throat made a noise I didn't recognize. Manny put a hand on my shoulder. I sank down on my studio floor, knees on linoleum, hands on my head, and I let it break me for 5 minutes. Then I picked up my phone, hit record, and said into the mic, "This ain't just money. It's my father's name. It's Grandma's promise. It's them saying, I'm less than human in legal language. Share this story if you think families should protect each other." We brought it to Camille. She printed it, circled the notary stamp. "Look at the date," she said, pencil tapping. She was already dead then. "We'll contact the notary board, and we'll get your dad's union involved about the death benefit. If he changed the beneficiary with a forged power of attorney, that's wire fraud once electronic transfers are involved." She slid her card across the table. "This is big, Jerome, but it's winnable. We need to control the reveal. You ready to be very public?" I nodded. Respect isn't inherited. It's earned shift by shift. I'd been earning it alone for too long. Time to earn it loud. We picked the reveal because they picked the stage. New Hope Baptist's Community Day always brought out everybody. Church hats and basketball shorts, folding chairs and domino tables. Uncle Rick loved the mic like it loved him back. He'd be there bragging like always, telling them I got $5,000 a month while I squeezed coins for bus fare. We planned for a week. Manny checked the Bluetooth on the PA. "They never changed the password," he grinned. "God bless lazy techs." Deacon Reggie, who had pulled me aside after a sermon and said, "Son, if I believed a lie, I apologize. My job is truth," offered to hold the mic if things went left. Camille prepped packets with timelines, exhibits, sworn statements. One from Miss Lula, one from Bethany, one from me. She said, if the press shows, we smile and stick to the facts. If the police show, we ask for their cards. Meanwhile, I was marinating ribs in my sink because even a day with war in it needs good food. I'd saved up to buy a second. Stainless steel grill last year as a gift to the block after a summer of cleanups. Nobody knew I'd bought it with overtime and skipped dinners and Goodwill boots. No plaque. Just a grill that belonged to everyone. That morning, I wheeled it out from my storage unit, wiped down the lid until it shone, and my hands didn't shake at all. Back to the moment. Uncle Rick slaps tongs against the rim. He sees me. Scraps fit you. You're black, he says with a grin, and flicks that burnt rib. Laughter blooms like something rotten. I catch the rib before it hits the ground and set it aside because food is food, even when it's thrown like an insult. My name is Jerome Price, I say, loud enough for the first row to hear. Then Manny feeds my mic into the big speakers. I'm 27 years old, and I need to tell you what my uncle did to me. The speakers catch up. My words boom clean. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. A couple people laugh, confused, looking for cameras. Manny gives me a nod. I roll out the second grill and park it right up front. Some aunties clap because they love stainless steel. I pull a folded envelope from my pocket and hold it up. By the end of this story, you'll understand why I had to stand up right here, at the church that raised me, and show you what's been done in our name. Manny taps his phone. The event TV, hooked up to the PA for karaoke later, blinks. Then up pops the Price Family group chat. Big, clear. Aunt Susan's words like they were painted in shame. Say we send him $5K. Cousin Snide, keep him on scraps so he don't get ideas. And Uncle's sentence that sounded like generations. No black air? It lands on the crowd like a cinder block. The laughter dies mid-breath. Someone gasps like they've been touched by cold water. Uncle Rick lunges toward the mixer. Manny is already sank low, switching to a backup Bluetooth speaker we cached under the table. The audio rolls next. My old Galaxy S7's recording. Uncle's voice saying, "Ain't no black boy owning Maybelle's house." It's unmistakable. He can't swallow it. He can't sand the edges off in front of the sanctuary. Family is supposed to love you, I say, and my voice shakes now. Not from fear, but from the weight of holding it too long. Family is supposed to tell the truth. Family is supposed to protect the child who lost his daddy at 18 and went to work nights so he could keep a roof over his mama's head and his own back straight. And yet, for 9 years, they told Atlanta they were sending me $5,000 every month. $5,000, while I counted quarters for bus fare and bought heater food, not both. They said I was confused, but I remembered everything. The hush in that parking lot felt like a prayer you don't have words for. Sirens, not the cops, motorcade. The mayor's office RSVP'd, and the timing hit like a blessing. We'd planned. Mayor Dickens steps out of a black SUV, walks through a crowd that parts like the Red Sea, but in church clothes. He shakes my hand. On behalf of Atlanta, he says into the mic Manny holds up, we recognize Jerome Price for service to the West End, block cleanups, mentorship, and generous donations to community resources. He pulls out a plaque. Cameras flash. Did I invite him? Yes. Did I feel small about it? No. You use the tools you got to build the house you need. I take the plaque and set it on the grill side shelf like a shield. I open the grill lid. Fire flares. And I set ribs on, oil popping like applause. Today, I say, and it carries across the parking lot, the neighborhood eats first. I start calling out names. Deacon Reggie, Sister Wilma, Ms. Lula. I hand plates to elders, kids, strangers. My cousins hang back. Aunt Susan looks like she swallowed a pit. Cameras keep rolling. A few people whisper, we had no idea. Someone says, we should have listened. Deacon Reggie takes the mic. Scripture says, he says deep and steady, be sure your sin will find you out. Let the truth speak. He looks at me. We failed you, son. He looks at Uncle Rick. We failed him? His hand is heavy on my shoulder and it feels like support, not control. Uncle Rick tries the old tone, the one with corporate shine. This is a misunderstanding, he starts. We have been in full support of Jerome for years. These screenshots are taken out of context, and the audio is manipulated. He turns to me, eyes small. You're embarrassing yourself? He reaches for the mic. I step back and raise the envelope. I have the receipts right here, I say. Originals and copies. Canceled checks written for my education with my name in the memo. Endorsed cash and deposited to your account. Bank statements from the Price Family Foundation used to pay your HOA and your boat slip. And a codicil you authored 2 weeks after Grandma died that says, and I quote, "No black descendant shall inherit." I have a notary stamp with the wrong date. I have voicemails. I have witness statements. And I have the courage you didn't think I would ever find. Cousin Bethany steps forward, voice too big for her small frame for the first time I can remember. He cut my scholarship too, she says, and her eyes are wet but fierce. He told me there was no money. Then he bought a boat. The crowd murmurs. Anger, shock, shame, all those jagged things we pretend we don't feel at church. Ms. Lula lifts her binder and says, "I can testify." Camille is at the edge of the crowd, handing a packet to a reporter from Channel 2. The mayor's aide whispers to him, and he nods slowly, lips thin. A couple off-duty APD officers, hired for security, step up and ask for my name and number. "We may need your statement," one says. "We'll be in touch." But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part wasn't them stealing money. It was them stealing dignity, like it was a spare set of keys. It was the nights I chose heat over food. It was the morning I walked to work on a torn heel with duct tape because the bus didn't come, and a taxi was a luxury I couldn't pronounce. It was the time I turned down an extra janitor shift because my back locked up and I lay flat on the floor, staring at the water stain on my ceiling that looked like Georgia with a bite taken out. It was the day I saw Aunt Susan lift a Macy's bag with a leather jacket for her little dog, and my stomach cramped so hard I had to bend over. They said I was confused, but I remembered everything. You still with me? Has family ever betrayed you like this? Comment below if you've seen this happen. What would you have done in my place? After that day, everything moved fast, in slow motion. The notary got a call, then a letter, then a court date. The Georgia Notary Commission looked at the dates and the signatures and said, "No, ma'am," and her commission was suspended pending investigation. The Fulton County Probate Court clerk stamped a motion to reopen Maybelle Price's estate because of suspected fraud. Camille took me to the courthouse and we sat on a wooden bench outside a room where everything smelled like dust and old paper. And we listened while Uncle Rick's lawyer said, "This is a family matter," in a voice that meant, "This should go away." The judge adjusted her glasses and said, "Fraud is not a family matter. It is a matter of law." She set dates, gave deadlines, and told both parties exactly what she expected. The sound of her gavel felt like someone closing a door on a long winter. At the same time, people stopped me in the West End. At the Chevron on Ralph David Abernathy, the cashier said, "We had no idea, man. That was brave." At Clipper King's barbershop, where I get a shape-up when I can afford to not look like I've been fighting time, the barbers stopped cutting long enough to stare at me in the mirror. "Bro," one said, mid-fade, "that was wild. I got a cousin did me like that about a tax refund once. Not like that, but still, the way family do, you be the worst." In a booth at Busy Bee Cafe, Sister Wilma slid me a plate of catfish and said, "On the house." She patted my hand. "We should have listened." And then, out of sight, some people I used to call family hissed when I walked by. One cousin posted on Facebook, "Some folks always making drama." She left out the part where the drama was a felony. I went back to work. I still scrubbed floors at Grady, the buffer humming its same old hymn. I still lifted pallets at the warehouse when my back let me, a brace hidden under my Goodwill jacket. I still punched my breeze card on Route 71, warm bus air howling like a storm through the cracked windows. But something was different. People looked me in the eye. Not pity, not scandal, respect. I may be young, but I'm not stupid. Respect isn't inherited. It's earned shift by shift. The union rep from IBEW Local 614 called me. "We got word from legal aid," he said. "If there's a forged beneficiary form on the death benefit, we want to help. Your daddy paid those dues. That money was supposed to be yours." Uncle Rick kept talking. He couldn't help it. He sent emails. He wore a suit the color of fog and stood in front of microphones and said, "We are heartbroken by these baseless accusations." He said, "We believe in family." He said, "This is unfortunate." Then a reporter asked him about the codicil metadata, and his mouth did a thing that cameras like to replay. Another asked about the foundation's expenses. "Boat slip?" she said, real gentle, like she was asking about a new baby. Something in his face cracked, not enough to be honest, but enough to leak. And in private, on a call he must not have known was recorded, he said to Aunt Susan, "If the boy wants to make this ugly, we'll make it uglier. He's not smart enough to keep up." He still thought I was who I was at 18. That's the thing about people who lie for a living. They get stuck in time. The hearing came. The courtroom was colder than it had any right to be. Camille wore her navy suit and her hair in a twist that meant business. I wore my one good shirt, ironed so hard you could hear it crackle. Deacon Reggie sat in the back, hands folded, eyes closed. Ms. Lula wore her church hat like armor. Uncle Rick's lawyer objected 12 times in 6 minutes. The judge overruled most of them. We entered exhibits, the canceled checks, the foundation transfers, the chat screenshots, the voice recordings, the codicil with the wrong dates, and the right racism. The notary cried when she admitted the stamp date didn't match. She said she'd been told it was just a formality. The room didn't move. Bethany's testimony made my throat close. "I thought I failed," she said. "I thought I wasn't worth it." The judge looked at her like a mother looks at a child who shouldn't have been crying alone. At the end, the judge said words, "I will tell my grandchildren if I'm lucky." "The court finds clear evidence of fraud," she said. "The codicil is void. The estate shall be administered as originally intended. The Price Family Foundation's accounts are to be frozen pending a forensic audit. Restitution shall be calculated and returned to the rightful beneficiaries, including Mr. Jerome Price." She turned to the side table. "Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the district attorney for review of potential charges." Uncle Rick's face went white. Aunt Susan's hand flew to her neck like she'd forgotten her pearls. I didn't celebrate. My knees went soft. Camille squeezed my shoulder until it hurt, and it was the best pain I'd ever felt. Justice with melancholy. Winning didn't erase the nights I went to bed. Hungry, the mornings I patched my shoes with duct tape, the afternoons I watched a Mercedes turn the corner with the windows up. Winning didn't erase the time I had to tell my mama we couldn't keep the heat up past 60 because the bill would break us. It didn't erase the way family looked at me like a problem they could delete with a lie, but it did something. It put my daddy's name back where it belonged, in my mouth and in the bank. It told Grandma Maybell's ghost that her promise wasn't wasted. When the foundation got audited, the receipts were a sad story made of numbers. HOA dues, boat payment, golf club, catering for that year's reunion where they laughed after flipping burnt ribs, a donation to a political candidate that matched a fundraiser photo of Uncle Rick shaking hands in a rented tux. The district attorney's office filed charges: theft by conversion, wire fraud, forgery. He was booked, then bonded out, then shamed by the same cameras that had once loved his smile. He couldn't find the mic anymore. The community came back around me slow and sure, like a tide that had gone out too far. People from the barber shop dropped by with casseroles. A couple from the church slipped me an envelope that said, "For HVAC school." The hospital offered me a better shift. The warehouse manager said, "We didn't know. We'll work with your schedule." The mayor's office sent a note. "Congratulations on your legal victory. When you finish your certification at Atlanta Technical College, we'd like to connect you to city contracts." I put the letter in a drawer with my few keepsakes: Daddy's old IBW badge, Grandma's collard greens recipe in her slanted hand, a Polaroid of me and Mama at the West End station waiting for the train. I moved into a one-bedroom with decent light and no mold blooming behind the toilet. The first night there, I lay on the floor with no furniture and listened to the hum of the building like a lullaby made of pipes. I put new boots in the closet. Nothing fancy, just a pair that didn't need duct tape. I stuck Grandma's recipe card to the fridge with a magnet I found at Goodwill. Florida, shaped like a flamingo, and I made collards in a pot that wasn't dented. I cried into the steam and didn't feel weak about it. Some tears unclenched things. I started my HVAC classes at Atlanta Technical College. I took notes like I was saving my life. On Saturdays, I wheeled that second grill into the New Hope parking lot without waiting for permission and cooked for the block. First the elders, then the kids, then whoever else was hungry. Manny played music, nothing too wild, just old soul and new hope. Deacon Reggie would wander by and say a few words, or he'd just nod. Sister Wilma fussed at me for not wearing a jacket when the wind cut. Sometimes Bethany came and sat on my cooler and did her homework. The grill belonged to the people, not to the family, not to a foundation. To the folks who needed a plate and a place to stand while they ate it. Camille and I set up a workshop at the church with Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation and Atlanta Legal Aid. We called it Receipts and Rights. We taught people, black and brown and broke and tired and proud, how to keep copies of wills, how to spot a shady notary stamp, how to ask for bank statements without being shamed. We told them about what a power of attorney can and can't do. We put warning signs on a flyer, secrecy around probate. We'll handle it, without receipts. Sudden changes after someone dies, group chats that dehumanize you. A lie needs constant maintenance, like a bad engine. The truth, it's like water. It finds the cracks. A few family members reached out with real apologies that tasted like humility, not PR. "I'm sorry," a cousin said. "I didn't read. I didn't listen. I just let him talk for me." We talked on a bench outside Busy Bee and agreed on boundaries like fences you can see through. Aunt Susan left me a voicemail with tears in it that sounded more scared than sorry. I didn't call back. Uncle Rick sent a letter through his lawyer that said, "No comment. The hole where family should be didn't close." I learned to live with it like you learn to live with a scar. You forget until you bump it, then you remember how deep it went. One Sunday, after church, a little boy tugged my sleeve. "Mr. Rome," he said, "why they do you like that?" His eyes were big and fierce. His mama tried to shush him. I knelt so we were face to face. "Sometimes people forget what family means," I said. "Sometimes they think money makes them better than truth. But watch us. Watch how we do better now." He nodded like old men nod, serious as a deacon. "You gonna fix our air when it breaks?" he asked. I laughed, full and not sad. "Yes, sir," I said. "I'm gonna fix everybody's air." He grinned like summer. At the barber shop, they still talk about it. "Y'all saw when the mayor showed up?" someone will say. "Buddy rolled that second grill like he'd been planning the whole time," another says, clippers buzzing, hair falling like feathers. That line, "the neighborhood eats first," I felt that, a third will add. Then they'll go back to talking about the Falcons and whether Busy Bee's mac and cheese is as good as it used to be, and a new kid will walk in and the conversation will move forward because it must. I'm not bitter. I'm tired in a way that's holy because it's honest. I'm wise because hardship taught me slow and good, not because I chose to be. I still ride the bus sometimes even though I got a car now, because it reminds me who I am and who I never want to forget. I still buy Dollar Tree dryer sheets, even though I can afford the fancy now, because I still like how they smell. I still count change sometimes just to remember that money is numbers, and numbers can lie if you let other people do the math for you. I still pray, not because I think God is going to fix every bad thing, but because I think He sits with you in it while you take out the trash and gives you just enough strength to wheel a grill into a parking lot when the time comes. If you see these signs, secrecy around wills, people telling you you don't need to see that, sudden changes after a death, group chats where folks talk about you like you not in the room, start writing dates, keep copies, ask questions, call legal aid, don't be shamed into silence by people who can afford louder microphones. And if you're the one doing the wrong, if you hear your voice in Uncle Rick's words, stop. Don't pass your pain down like an heirloom. The day the restitution check cleared, I went to the bank and signed my name like it meant something. I bought Mama a good space heater and took her to the cardiologist, and when she pulled me into her shoulder afterward, small and fierce, she said, "I'm sorry I couldn't stop them. I'm sorry I didn't see it." I hugged her like I used to when I was 10, when I thought she could fix everything, and I said, "Family is supposed to forgive when folks tell the truth. Not forget. Forgive." there's a difference. We went home and ate collards and cornbread and laughed at a TV show that wasn't funny because it felt good to laugh again. I kept the plaque from the mayor on my mantle, not because I need a trophy, but because sometimes when you stand up where you got knocked down, you need a picture frame around it so you remember you did that. The grill shines in the back of the church shed, oiled against rust, ready for the next time we need to gather and be better than our worst. The second grill lives at the community center now, with a piece of tape on the handle that says Blocks, because that's who it always was. The Price Family Foundation website is gone. The man who liked microphones likes silence now. People still ask me, "Do you hate them?" And I tell them the truth. No, hate is heavy. I got enough to carry. I mourn what we could have been. And then I go to work, and I come home, and I cook, and I write down my uncle's lies, not because they live rent-free in my head, but because every time I say them out loud, they lose a brick. The wall gets lower. More people climb over. By the end of this story, maybe you understand why I had to stand up in that church lot with a grill and a plaque and a packet of receipts. Maybe you see how laughter becomes silence when truth gets a mic. Maybe you feel tired and glad in the same breath like I do most nights. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when you're counting pennies for bread. It's about who holds your elbow while you stand in front of the pastor and the mayor and the whole block and say, "I just want what's fair," and mean it. That day at New Hope, after the plates were mostly empty and the sun tilted down just enough to make everything look more honest, a woman I didn't know leaned close and whispered, "You gave us our church back today." I shook my head. "No, ma'am," I said. "We gave it back to each other." She nodded like we'd both heard a good hymn. The last thing I'll tell you is this. The truth always comes to light. It might take longer than you want. It might show up hungry and late to the party. It might wear duct-taped shoes and have pockets full of bus transfers, but it will find the cracks and run downhill and pool where you can see it. And when it does, don't look away, because somebody important might be embarrassed. Let it shine. Let it wash over you. Step into it like a baptism. Walk out different. Walk out with your head up, even if your shoes still ain't right yet. One day they will be. One day you'll set down the duct tape and pick up something lighter. Share this to spread awareness and tell me where you're watching from. Has family ever done you dirty like this? Like, comment, and subscribe if you believe truth wins over lies. Hit the bell so you don't miss the next story.